workshop. I will call the regular meeting, the special meeting to order, and invite you all to rise and join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 2 October.
We're gonna wait on that. You wanted to wait, didn't you?
Until the, yeah, for the regular meeting, can we hold that off until the regular meeting for November? Will that
Oh,
be
he
all right?
didn't see your message about
Oh, I sent
your
it
email
on.
tonight,
I
because
did.
it was late.
Only because then it'll show up on the regular meeting, then if anybody
Okay.
researches it, it shows up on the regular meeting.
Very good. In that case, we'll move on to floor time. Would anybody like to address the board? If not, then we'll move on. Supervisor report, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion to move the 2018 budget from tentative to preliminary.
So,
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. The next thing is request board's approval for me to sign an agreement to reactivate the Eastbrook flood gauge.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed? Good. And basically, for the folks watching online, this is, USGS has the equipment already on Eastbrook. This is just one step. When the contract is done, it authorizes me to go ahead and set it and try to accelerate at least getting the Eastbrook gauge activated. The next item is the deals with the Westbrook flood gauge. And I'm requesting approval of the board to go ahead and sign grant application approaching Casco Watershed Commission for funds to pay for the hardware for the Westbrook gauge.
I move it.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Next is the dog catcher replacement vehicle. Is there any?
Yeah, I talked to Steve Saturday and talked to Walt tonight about meeting, they're gonna meet at a highway committee meeting and do specs and get that out to bid so we can get moving on that, so, we'll be meeting, Steve, we usually meet the first Monday of the month, that could be good for you at 6 o'clock. I think you'll be back, you said you'll be back by then, okay. All right, so I'll send out an email to remind you, so we will get working on that.
Okay, good. Along the lines of the dog catcher and all, one of the challenges we've had is folks, we have a large number of people that are delinquent in getting their licenses. So I'd ask the board to think that over and come up with some ideas of what we might be able to do to kind of to catch up on that, and we'll discuss that at our November meeting.
And these are people that the dogs are alive and in town still.
To the best of our knowledge, they're alive. Now, there's been some folks who will come in and, you know, the dog's dead, they just have no
Yeah, well, I
lives, and that's okay.
But-
But
So what's your guesstimate on that?
The problem is tracking them down, when you finally do track them down, if you track them down,
Mhm.
it might be that the dog is dead. They fail, or they just simply failed to renew it.
Fantastic.
Like I said, if you track them down, a lot of times, a lot of these dog owners, are transient in nature, and they'll,
Right.
you know, they move from house to house, and just trying to track them down becomes an issue.
Right.
The phone numbers that we have for them,
Yeah.
you know, are no good, so that's essentially what the challenge is.
So what percentage of those outstanding bills you have not been able to track for whatever reason?
Oh,
You know,
I
ballpark.
would say probably 15 to 20% of them.
Okay, so
So they've had no answer, you've had no
Right,
record.
That
no
you
comment,
cannot
no log tracking them down.
verify, right? So 80% of those are verified. So whatever decision we come up to is meaningful in the sense that, all right, okay. Thank you.
So we'll put that on the agenda for the November meeting and try to follow up with some, what our next steps on that are. Not on the agenda, but I also want to address it. At the last meeting, we talked about the Parks, Recreation, Open Space questionnaire. County Planning has sent a revised version of that. One of the things I asked them to do is to include either bringing the survey back to us here or mailing it to us, or to give them an option to scan it and email their comments to the town hall, to the supervisor. So,
There's an error in here,
okay,
Village Parks, Basin and Moore Park is a town park.
you're right.
Is Riverside officially a village park? Or is Bassett the only actual park?
No, actually,
It's Harbor Park, right?
Oh, yeah, I think it is Harbor
It's
Park.
Harbor Park, yeah.
and it is, yeah. And so is, that little strip of land over in,
Prospect.
on Prospect Street.
Franklin Park.
Walking into 206.
Okay, Franklin Park.
Franklin Park?
Yeah,
Yeah.
put that in there, nobody.
I never knew that, my kids used to play there all the time.
I don't go to Franklin.
And I think it was Doc Heights in-laws that had owned it and donated it to,
I think you said that the last time.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
but should also it say then town parks and have Moore Park and Veterans Plaza?
Don't
Which
wait.
is not really a park,
Yeah,
it might be no, just because.
yeah, I'm thinking, and folks watching, parks have special state protections.
And
that-
that's not, sure,
Right,
sure.
and we ran into that with Moore Park when we did the land swap. They had to be approved by the Senate, and signed by the governor, so. But, yeah, making town village parks, Bassett, Moore. So, with that correction, the board's okay with having a planning department send these out? Okay. The next thing is, I've asked Steve to come and talk about the land flood commission and a couple ideas that we've been working on with Walton, Steve and I. Let's start, I guess, with the buildable lots. If you want to,
Yeah, you kind of, honestly, you caught me off guard with that one, but that's okay. One of the things we're rapidly approaching the point where we're gonna start looking at primarily bridges, projects around bridges, replacing bridges, which means that structures are going to have to be relocated. So one of the things I've done is I've started to kind of compile a little map identifying where there are lots available for people to move to. So when we go have conversations with a homeowner and say, if they ultimately choose to participate, we're able to say, well, here's some options that we've identified for you. Whether it be, you know, a more traditional residential neighborhood, if we can find lots there, which I've identified a couple, or whatever else.
so you've got a map there, and I'd ask that we not make this public until Steve's had a chance to approach the village and to talk to the landowners to see if that's actually, but again, just wanted to let you know some of the things that the floodplain manager's been working on. The other thing is, last Monday, over at Soil and Water Conservation, we had a meeting with the mayor, myself, DEC personnel, Soil and Water personnel, looking at options for how to dispose of contaminated soil down in the Water Street reclamation area. Now, some of them are pretty straightforward. Concrete, asphalt, wood, they'll separate those on site. But they were looking at different options for the rest of the soil. Now, to clear any doubt, there's not a hazardous waste site. There's not hazardous waste, that's been cleared. But there is some soil that will need attention and that will drive just how they dispose of the soil. One of the options they looked at, and they're pursuing that to see if it's feasible, would be to use as a road base, because if you use it as a road base, it'd be sealed by the asphalt on top. So as pursuing that, an option we considered exploring was the South River Road. Whether it is raising South River Road above the floodplain, whether it's to take it across DEP property, or whether, again, reapproaching the landowner to make sure, because we have not talked directly to the landowner to go straight across to Beers Brook. And what the goal of the South River extension would be to avoid the culvert, it's an undersized culvert, between Route 10 and the backside of South River Road. So, looking at I guess the first step is from the town, do we want to continue exploring some of these options? So that if it does, is a way to expedite the disposal of that property, of that contaminated soil.
My understanding is in order to raise it up high, it's, there's second-story windows where the flood came, was. So, I mean, that's not a small impact, you're not throwing a little dirt on there, I mean, it's a large bringing it up. And how do you do that?
We want
Well, first of all, what house are you talking about?
The farm.
The farmhouse, okay, so that,
Very old farm.
yeah, okay, so that probably sits 4 feet below grade, or below the existing road now. I don't know that it got that deep, but whatever.
According to him, it got that deep.
The flood map, basically the flood map shows that just below Williams, you know where Williams House is? Just below there, all the way to the intersection with Route 10, South River Road is in the floodplain. Walton and I were talking about this the other day. I don't know that did you ever verify whether water got over that?
I couldn't get
in
through
that
there
area?
when the water was high, I tried.
Right, and you made it to about where Williams,
I made it to far as where dump bars, there's a
Yeah.
5-foot pipe that was,
Yeah.
there was so much debris in the road.
right. So, I mean, it would
Water
have to
running,
be,
'cause the pipe wouldn't take.
right, it would have to be, obviously studied out a little bit more, but that was, you know, one of several options. And probably would be a stretch to get that in line in time for spring, for them to start, you know, when they start digging down there. But it was just a thought that we had, we're kind of spitballing right now. Can we bring that road up 3 feet, better protect it from floods, and at least from Paul's house to the village, you now have a clear road. You know, even if that culvert continues to be an issue, if we can't get bypass that, can we elevate that road and have it better protected? In all but the
How
worst
do you elevate the
floods.
road? Doesn't that flood the houses that are now?
Well, the floodplain basically ends on, if you're going down the road, on the left side of the road. Okay, so basically, you're putting in a little bit of fill in the floodplain down through there. Is that gonna have a huge effect on that house? Again, that has to be looked at, you know, you'd have to say, okay,
Depends where the water is coming from.
Yeah.
Coming from the
I mean,
river,
you're having this,
it protects it. If it's coming from the mountain, that makes a dike in there and floods it.
right.
right. So, you know, again, you'd have to look at it, you say, okay, if we elevate this road 3 feet, what does that do? Run it through the models and see what it does. Again, we're just trying to take a look at,
You're looking at all the
right,
angles.
Yeah,
so what are our options?
what we'd like is board's permission to go ahead and explore these. No decisions made to do it, we just don't have the facts. But
Right, you should absolutely do that.
I don't have any problem looking at it, but I think we really need to know costs associated with these different options.
Right.
because-
exactly,
And how we're gonna fund that, whether it's grant funding, I mean, we're talking, this could be a major
Right.
project that, you know, unless we
Oh,
get grant funding,
absolutely.
we may not wanna
Yeah.
may not wanna pursue it, so.
I just didn't wanna jump into this
Right, right.
without, and suddenly,
Our next step would be to, because I think, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I think our preference is to do the bypass road. So that we just avoid the culvert down there altogether.
You avoid the culvert, but you're still not avoiding that turn, which is already flooded.
That's understood, but the culvert's probably flooded before the road is. So at any rate, it's a moot point if DEP says no. And so we wanted to talk to the board. If the board is good with moving forward and exploring, then I think our next stop is talking to the city. Because either option, either if you go straight off of that corner over to Beersbrook, or if you go down to Paul's and hang a left, through there, you've got to cross DEP land. So kind of the ball is in their court at that point.
Is part of the question doing some kind of a reservoir catch basin in the city land so that you don't have to do that, that it catches it? We talked about that.
For
That you
which,
dig it out in the woods where there's
are
nothing.
you talking
So it
to
comes off of
mitigate,
Beersbrook,
to
coming
mitigate
off of-
Beersbrook?
Correct,
Yeah.
so that fills up from Beersbrook, so it
I
doesn't
think we've
overwhelm the
kind of
culvert.
looked at that and thought about that. You'd have to talk to somebody who's a better expert at that kind of stuff than I am, but I think.
Well, New
kind
York
of the-
City's kind of built reservoirs before.
Well, I think that the consensus is, the problem with Beersbrook is it's an alluvial fan when you get down there. Okay, you get
Say that
an
again.
alluvial fan, which means that that brook is flushing everything out of the mountains. When it gets down to that flat valley, it goes over here one year, over here the next year, over here. The only thing that's keeping it in place right now to any degree is the fact that that culvert's there, and we keep having to clean the culvert out. If you take that culvert out, then you don't have that stream trying to march back and forth and find its way to the river. Can you address that with some sort of a detention basin? I don't think so. Just because of the nature of the beast.
They're huge.
It would have to be gigantic.
Yeah.
But it's certainly
Twice
something that can be
a
looked at.
year.
I don't know if they've looked at that in detail, but
I mean, there's not, usually there's nothing.
then,
It will flow every time it rains, the brook will bring stuff into it, and the big flow will be every, whatever, 10 years or whatever. That's a huge issue there. I mean, as far as the making a reservoir for it. I mean, put an extension to the Cannonville, and pretty much that's what it take, yeah.
I think Patty brings up a good point about if it's water's on that corner down in this area. I don't know what the difference is, the time frame is from, or amount of water when the culvert tops over, and when
Right.
there's water so you can't go down the road.
right.
I mean, if you're talking, at 5 o'clock, it's over the culvert, at 5:30, it's, it seems like we're spending a lot of money
Right.
to do this when we're not really
And that's a
curing
tough,
the
and
problem.
that's a tough question to
Even if it's
answer,
not
because
Depending on the weather,
if you
yeah.
get a storm that parks over top of Bear Spring,
Right,
and it's kind of localized that way,
Yeah.
and you don't really have riverine flooding, then you're only dealing with Beersbrook.
right.
Where if you get a bigger situation where the river's flooding, then it's a different animal.
I mean, I don't know the history of the floods, whether,
Actually, after the 2006 event, we did have several PWs,
Mhm.
Bob and Walt did, and finally got one obligated to put a different crossing in.
Right.
Which was, they called for a bridge, but it was only like $130,000 where that culvert is,
yeah,
to put that in. And they kind of backed out after we got a design done, because the design took up all the money.
yeah,
And it turned out to be, I'm going by memory now,
it's a lot of money.
a 30-foot span, 35 foot, and what's in there is a 6-foot diameter culvert, tremendously bigger, but as was mentioned on the alluvial fan, which is moving all the gravel from upstream come down there, and it got pretty good velocity till it gets onto the level, and then the water slows down and it all drops out. It would turn into a maintenance nightmare. And that would be turning the bridge over to the county if it was put on, and the county really doesn't wanna take on any more bridges either. And I'm not sure that would solve some of the flooding problem, but in all the times, and I did a lot of research to try to, we've applied for grants through the FEMA, the Hazardous Mitigation Act, but never had enough damage, not a significant dollar amount of damage
In that corner.
in that, on all of South River Road to justify doing that. But however, in the 2006 event, when it was coming over the Delaware Street, or Bridge Street, couldn't get emergency services across there. That was the thought, is that would be the other avenue to connect one side of the community with the hospital. and
Right,
the
I understand
hospital
that,
with
and
the
I
other.
see the point in that, but if this is blocked, the culvert is blocked from Route 10, you're not gonna have that anyway, but even if you get past the culvert, but you don't get past the
Yeah,
corner, you're
that
not gonna
area
get
there, I
that
don't
route.
know, because I was stuck at home, but I couldn't get down because of sluice pipe, the one by Dunbar's and.
Well, he
that
has
had
he
clogged.
has a water line in his
I don't
second,
doubt
that
that,
that it was there.
And I do
He has
not,
the-
I don't remember a large amount of road damage there, and I was.
And
that's not
Paul,
a-
I'm listening from this, Paul, I
Yeah.
wasn't there then.
I believe you.
Yeah, but the water was over the road.
I was
I
over
mean,
the road, it was the turn.
Yeah, it was a pond back there in that corner where the house
And over
is.
the road, so that you wouldn't be been going through.
Right.
I just know there was not a lot of road damage. So that to me indicated,
So it moved.
there could have been, it was slow moving water.
Right, it was overflowing
Yeah.
from the main channel.
Yeah, and there's, you know, as we have well learned over the years, there's no silver bullets to solving any of this. It's just a matter of, you know, doing
And the
what we
water
can
from
do.
over, that went over the road came off the mountain, or it came from the river? It had to have come off the mountain.
No, I'm thinking probably from the river.
It did come from
I
the
don't,
river?
I don't know, I wasn't there. The only other thing to keep in mind too, is that culvert right now structurally is pretty sound. But when you go to have to replace that, and there probably won't be anybody on this board from the condition it's in, when you go to do that, and you go to get a permit from the GDC and the Army Corps, they're gonna do a hydraulic analysis on that, and they're gonna tell you, you're gonna have to put in a 30-foot bridge. And that right now, the price tag would probably be $750,000. With that.
If they wanna pay for it, that'd be fine.
Can't seem to find anybody in the last 10 years, we've submitted
We've
several
tried,
times.
we've tried.
Yeah.
Actually, the
So-
book is quite thick.
So it sounds like we're pretty much agreed, we'll explore the options and then make a decision downstream when we have the facts. So Walt and Steve, if you don't mind, I'd ask the two of you, floodplain manager and highway, if you could kind of take the lead in pursuing this, we'll address it with the flood.
I think the first thing is to make sure we have permission to,
Yep,
the concept is a,
yep. And
Can we sue them?
approach DEP to see if
Because
They're
they're
open to it.
within the capacity of the
Steve, I'm
town
thinking
to
if
have
you wouldn't
medical
mind
access.
contacting the owner, I know, and just see what his thoughts and what the pros and cons, and let him,
Yep, we'll have that conversation.
that way we'll have firsthand instead of secondhand knowledge that, well, he's not happy. I mean, not that I doubt the secondhand
I
knowledge.
don't doubt anything, and I don't doubt the flooding down there, I just,
This is only buildable lot, so he's
but
not.
one other thing
Well,
too is,
it's only-
it's hard to judge things on what happened in 2006. Hopefully we never get one, well, it's not if, it's when we do. But there are events that are less than that overtops
Yeah,
that. And like Steve said, there's no silver bullet, but if we can go from a 10-year event to a 25-year event, we have the likelihood of less recurrence of it. And
Okay,
actually, I live on South River Road, but I'm on the other end, so I can't get across the bridge, I'm stuck over there.
okay, so we'll move on then. The next item is the Walton Revitalization Project, and this is a follow-up on the seminar, the workshop that was held back in July, I think it was July 27, 28. Place Alliance hosted, actually facilitated it, county planning hosted it. In the folders in front of you, you'll see your homework, if you would please. And what this is it's my personal notes from those workshops. And on the other side is what I've drafted so far as the preliminary thoughts or comments, the town's comments on the options that are directly impacted by the town. As we voted previously, our top number one priority is the River Edge Trail. Number two is Veterans Plaza. Number three is the Brady Motors So it's just a starting point, take a look at that. If there's other ideas you wanna throw in, that's great. If there's something in here that you think isn't so good, let me know, we can pull it out. In addition, I put down a lot of the things that we discussed at some of the workshops really fall under the village's purview. That said, the village is in the town, so I think it would be valid for us to share our concerns, our interests, recommendations to the village as to how they prioritize. Ultimately, the village will decide, but still, our inputs to the contractor. So I'd ask that you take a look at those, scrub them, changes, welcome, and we'll discuss that at the November meeting. And that's the, is there anything else that we need to bring up while we're together? Highway Department, Code Enforcement, floodplain, dog patrol, anything else?
Tree.
Yeah. Yes, okay, thank you. The Veterans Plaza. Patty, would you like to?
The parade is going to end at Veterans Plaza at the Christmas parade this year. Which we, meaning the town, are lighting the tree in red, white, and blue for being Veterans Plaza, and that's where they'll come back to. Roger Clough approached me that student council would like to buy a tree for this year, a real tree, so it's bigger, because, you know, that tree is not all that big yet. And have the kids decorate it. They would be responsible for buying the lights and putting it up and decorating, et cetera, to do that. And have a second tree. I mean, both trees would be lit, but have a second tree for this year while that tree is growing. So the nice thing about that would be it would bring the teenagers into it, buying into it, and being part of the community celebration. More little kids are in the parade than teenagers, and all of them are welcome, but I kind of like the multi-generational aspect of it and stuff, and, you know, as long as it's not offending anybody that it is another tree, it's still going to be at Veterans Plaza, one way or another.
This will be a cut tree and not a
Cut tree,
big
yeah.
tree.
They're gonna dispose of the tree afterwards too.
Yep. And they would take care of all the expense. The expense to the town would be that would be another tree that's being,
Yeah, but the LED lights, that's nothing.
and stuff.
This
So,
day and age.
that was a project of the student council that he wanted me to inquire about.
I think it's a great idea. Nice that the school's involved, that they care
Like the idea
enough
of
to
the
want to get
event.
in. Commendable that the student council, young people are willing to step up and do something like that. But then, that means that these are our future leaders. So if we can encourage them, I think it's a good idea.
And I mean, having more than one tree there.
How
not
long
gonna
is
be an
that,
issue.
is that one tree gonna be there?
Well, usually, the fire department usually brings it in about the day of the thing, so it would be through Christmas. The parade is that Thanksgiving.
Fire department's gonna start selling trees like the 30th, I don't know, the end of, very end of November, I forget the date. Wasn't it the
25th is the parade.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
30.
I'm not sure they're gonna
I think
cut
too.
it by, maybe whatever the weekend falls.
I will be asking to use the bucket truck again for clip decorations along.
The chamber of taxing.
Well, I'm not in the chamber, but I do it, so I'll be asking Walt about using that, so. I'll try not
Probably
to,
like
try not to do it
the
for
first of
Thanksgiving.
December, I would think.
See, I thought he said
Yeah,
November,
we're
but he must have been
before
looking at something.
Maybe it was just.
Well,
Well, before
Maybe
Halloween,
20.
I'll try not to do it for.
The second is
It's no
Saturday.
fun doing it out there when it's 0 degrees, so.
And-
Yeah, I don't remember.
So,
Either the weekend before, they're gonna- I don't, I'm gonna start on Monday, I don't know.
So, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the offer, we accept the offer from the student council.
Now, I don't know that all their ducks are in a row, but they would like to do that, so if we approve it, then we'll have.
Pending their-
They might have to make their stuff happen.
Yeah.
But,
I'll
I'll
second
second.
it.
Motion made and seconded,
Who made the motion?
Glenn did. Any additional Discussion?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed? Anything else?
In the event that it's muddy at that time, do you think we could maybe find some bluestone or something donated that we could make a path to it if the kids wanted to get to the tree from one side? Obviously, wouldn't be a permanent thing, it would be removed at the end of it. It actually would be removed probably after the parade. But anyway, maybe through the season that you could get to the tree to, the kids like to put ornaments on the tree
Yeah.
sometimes. Not a lot of them do it, it's nice to have the option and.
Where are they
sometimes
planning on
it's
putting
fun.
the student council tree?
Well, it'd probably be more centered in parallel to the gazebo because, or the pavilion, because that's where the electricity is.
Okay, the easy way to do it would be to put down either shavings or hay. That's what they normally do, whether without outside events.
Snow,
Sure.
that would work.
Yeah.
Something, I
To
didn't,
to absorb the moisture and stuff.
Yeah.
If it's on snow,
Of course,
it'll
they're
freeze
talking,
in.
yeah, you're talking about throughout the season, they're gonna be going in and out, right?
not really, I think
Oh,
they're
okay.
basically just gonna go out.
Just one
and-
night,
and-
okay.
yeah. But one of the concerns brought up at the Chamber of Commerce was what if it's slushy and snowy and muddy and stuff, and if we could put some kind of a barrier down, if that was,
Maybe,
that might never
if-
happen.
if the student council was concerned
Maybe.
about that and wanted to put hay down, or straw shavings, that would be.
And maybe when the student council is putting this up, if the conditions are such, we're gonna want to do something so that they're not, running, it's not running and stuff like that too. So, the other tree is planted, but that doesn't mean we still gotta get to it with the thing while we're putting it on the
Yeah.
lights, we can have that same thing. So we could maybe find something to mitigate.
Okay. Speaking of the other tree, do we want to put the lights up early so that we can turn them on for Veterans Day?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. I will,
I don't think that the parade is coming back to Veterans Plaza this year. George Ostrowski went on a cruise and that wasn't finalized and stuff, so I don't know that they're coming back to the Veterans Plaza this year, but I think that in the future that might happen anyway. But it certainly would be nice regardless at Veterans Plaza to have red, white, and blue lights on.
I'll organize the details. So, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved,
Yeah.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
I
Folks,
have,
thanks for coming out.
I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly. Has the contaminant been identified in the soil?
Yes.
Yes, it has. Graydon would probably be the one to be able to get the details. Yeah.
None of the
But you don't know what it
classifieds
is?
have.
We don't know what it is.
How about the amounts for the gauge, East Brook
Yep.
and West Brook?
Uh,
And it was it budgeted for?
Yeah,
Is East Brook budgeted for?
Have we announced that? Oh. Okay, well, I don't think we announced that New York City has agreed to share the cost of
No,
O&M.
you didn't. I'm surprised you.
Okay, I'm sorry. New York City has agreed to pay operation maintenance costs for both gauges.
Oh, nice.
They'll pay 2/3, the town will pay 1/3.
Okay.
That will start in their budget. The year starts October 2018, so we'll be starting then. But what you're asking, I have here. Give me a moment to find out. Yeah, here we go. Okay. In this year, the 2018 funds, it's $17,200 for operation and maintenance for each gauge.
Our part of
For
payment,
each.
is that townwide?
And we have budgeted that in the 2018 budget.
Okay.
So that is, I'm going to double that figure.
That's right.
Okay,
The cost of the Westbrook gauge,
okay.
O&M is still the same, but it's $16,000 for the
Hardware.
installation, yeah, for
Okay.
hardware. And that's for a stage, discharge, and telemetry gauge. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, basically, it's gonna be, we already have a gauge on the Delaware River where people can go online and see what the projected flood situation is.
Wednesday at noon, 5.6 feet.
So this will give folks the ability to look at Eastbrook and Westbrook.
Yeah, it'll all show up on the USGS.
When is this anticipated to be operational?
I don't have firm dates
Okay.
yet, and that's one of the things that we're working with the USGS.
Okay.
First, it'll be faster for the Eastbrook because it's just getting it
Equipment's
activated.
done, right.
Westbrook's gonna be more longer. That's why our discussion on that, authorizing, the board authorizing me to sign contracts and everything, so as soon as we can, we're gonna push forward with it.
And that 16,000 is just a one-shot deal.
Right,
Okay.
for the equipment,
Yeah.
and installation.
In the building. Right,
Yeah,
And a
2
building.
by 3 foot
Yeah.
building.
Yeah,
an outhouse.
and where that's important,
2 by 3?
where that's important is, you know, Westbrook, that's a school bus garage, and Walton's only grocery store.
Okay.
That's critical. Eastbrook, it's towns and school, that's our youngsters, so we're talking safety for the youngsters, and subsistence for the grocery store and, again, the schools, so. This gives a little more preparation time for the community. If we need to move school buses, because it looks like it's coming up real fast, if we need to start evacuating people, it gives the emergency operations center remote access to them so that they can anticipate any emergency evacuations.
And this will also eventually tie into CRS as far as having early warning, so that will gain us more points in CRS. Hopefully put us to whatever next level we're shooting for.
Okay, folks, thanks for coming out today.
I can't